The carriage house looked like something from a storybook. That was the first thing Lena Whitaker thought when she saw it again. It sat deep inside the forest beyond the old family property where moss-covered stone paths curved beneath towering trees. The building itself looked almost unreal beneath the morning fog. Curved slate roofing, round windows, weathered stone walls tangled with ivy. A small clock tower rising above the center roofline. Beautiful, forgotten, and according to her brothers, worthless. 3 weeks earlier, after their father's will had been read, they barely tried hiding their excitement. Her oldest brother got the ranch land. The second got investment accounts and equipment holdings. The third inherited several rental properties. Then came Lena. The carriage house transfers to Lena Whitaker. Silence. Then laughter. Not cruel enough to become a fight. Just dismissive enough to hurt. Her youngest brother smirked. Seriously? Another laughed. You got the fairy tale garage. Their father had never explained why he kept the old carriage house separate from the rest of the estate. Nobody visited it anymore. Nobody used it. As far as the family knew, it was just an old structure left over from another century. And because nobody thought it mattered, nobody argued over it. Now Lena stood at 19 years old on the stone path leading toward the building while mist drifted quietly through the trees around her. She carried a backpack over one shoulder and the property key in her hand. The deeper she walked into the forest, the quieter everything became. Birds, wind, distant creek water. The world felt strangely separated from everything outside, like the forest protected the place deliberately. Her father used to bring her here when she was little. Not often, but enough for her to remember small details. The smell of cedar wood, the little stone bridge crossing the creek, the way he always smiled differently here. At the time she never understood why. Now she wondered. The front door opened easily. Too easily. Warm cedar scent drifted outward immediately. Not decay, not abandonment. Preservation. Lena frowned slightly. That wasn't normal. The carriage house should have smelled old and forgotten. Instead, it smelled maintained. She stepped inside slowly. And stopped. The interior looked nothing like she expected. The ceiling stretched upward 2 stories beneath exposed timber beams. Workbenches lined the walls beneath organized shelves filled with tools and strange mechanical components. Furniture sat covered neatly beneath white sheets. Dust barely coated anything. Everything looked paused rather than abandoned. "This place isn't dead," Lena whispered. Near the rear wall stood an enormous wooden work table covered with sketches and notebooks. She moved closer slowly. Mechanical drawings, detailed measurements, engineering notes. Her father's handwriting. Her pulse quickened slightly. What were you doing? Because none of this looked related to carriages. The notebooks showed complex transportation systems and structural designs far beyond simple restoration work. Then she noticed the floor. Fresh scrape marks crossed the stone beneath the work table. Parallel grooves. Heavy movement. Recent movement. Lena crouched carefully. The marks disappeared beneath a large decorative storage cabinet built into the rear wall. At first glance it looked permanent. Then she noticed the steel tracks beneath the floor. Tracks. Industrial tracks. Her heartbeat sped up. No way. She searched nearby until she found the mechanism hidden behind hanging coats and old harness equipment. A small iron will built into the wall. Slowly, she turned it. Deep machinery rumbled beneath the floor immediately. Lena jumped backward. The entire storage cabinet shifted sideways across hidden rails, revealing a circular platform beneath. Cold air rose from below. Industrial lights flickered weakly somewhere underneath the building. Her mouth opened slightly. No. The platform lowered slowly into darkness. Not a cellar. Not storage. Something much larger. She stepped onto it carefully. The descent felt impossibly deep. Stone walls gave way to reinforced concrete. Steel support beams emerged from darkness beneath hidden lighting systems. And when the platform finally reached the lower level, Lena stopped moving completely. The underground structure stretched beneath the forest like a hidden engineering facility. Prototype vehicles sat beneath suspended work lights. Mechanical systems filled fabrication stations along polished concrete floors. Drafting tables lined entire sections of the chamber beneath walls covered with blueprints. Everything looked preserved. Operational. Not abandoned. This can't be real. She walked slowly forward, trying to understand what she was seeing. This wasn't a carriage house. Not really. It was something else entirely. Then she noticed the files. Large, organized binders stacked beside one drafting table. Transport systems, patents, licensing agreements, royalty records. Her pulse immediately quickened. No chance. She opened the nearest file. Engineering diagrams covered the pages. Advanced suspension systems, terrain stabilization designs, emergency transport technology. Then came the contracts. Utility companies, infrastructure firms, transport manufacturers, and beneath all of it, current royalty statements. Current, not old, not expired. Current. Lena stared. Her father hadn't been hiding inside the forest restoring old carriages. He had built something. Quietly. Successfully. And apparently nobody knew. Or nobody cared enough to ask. Then she noticed the framed photograph. Her father stood smiling beside one of the prototype vehicles inside this exact underground chamber. Below the photograph, handwritten words read, "Let them underestimate what they don't understand." Lena slowly looked around the underground facility again. All those years, everyone mocked the worthless carriage house. Meanwhile, an entire engineering operation existed hidden beneath it. Then she noticed the envelope sitting alone on the center work table. Her name written clearly across the front. Lena. Her heartbeat pounded harder now. Because suddenly, she understood something important. The hidden platform wasn't the real secret. It was only the entrance. And whatever her father truly meant to leave her, she still hadn't seen the most important part yet. Lena stood in the center of the underground facility while the quiet hum of hidden ventilation systems echoed through the chamber. For several seconds, she simply stared at the envelope. Everything felt unreal. 3 weeks ago, her brothers laughed when she inherited the carriage house. 3 weeks ago, she walked out of the lawyer's office feeling invisible. Now she stood beneath a forest inside a hidden engineering operation no one else in the family even knew existed. Slowly, she picked up the envelope. Her hands felt colder than before. Inside sat a handwritten letter, several access cards, and a thick packet of legal documents bound together with metal clips. Her father's familiar handwriting covered the first page. If you found the lower level, then you looked deeper than everyone else. Lena sat slowly beside the drafting table and kept reading. Most people decide what something is worth within the first few seconds of seeing it. That mistake becomes expensive. Her eyes drifted slowly around the underground workshop again. Prototype vehicles, fabrication stations, blueprints, patent files. Nothing about this matched the image her family had of her father. The letter continued. The carriage house above protected the operation below because old things become invisible once people stop understanding them. Lena almost smiled. Because that explained everything. The family saw an old decorative building hidden in the woods. They saw maintenance costs. They saw inconvenience. Nobody saw value. Attached beneath the letter sat ownership summaries and licensing records. The hidden operation specialized in transportation systems designed for difficult terrain and emergency infrastructure environments. Her father had spent years developing stabilization systems and adaptive transport technologies for areas where ordinary systems failed. Instead of building a large public company, he licensed the technologies quietly. Long-term agreements, partial ownership, low visibility, steady control. Lena opened the attached summaries slowly. The royalty payments were ongoing, active, reliable, not massive headlines or flashy wealth. Better, systems companies still depended on. The type of income that quietly continued whether people paid attention or not. Then one sentence stopped her completely. I left this to you because you paid attention when nobody else did. Her throat tightened, because suddenly memories came back clearly. As a child, Lena always followed her father into workshops and garages while her brothers ran toward fields and trucks. She asked questions. Thousands of questions. Why did engines sound different? Why did some bridges flex in wind? Why did wheels fail on rough roads? Most people eventually told her she asked too much. Her father never did. Apparently, he remembered. Lena looked through the remaining packet. Maps of the underground facility, testing areas, storage levels, research sections, and one location marked carefully in red. Primary Design Archive. She stood immediately. Using one of the access cards, she followed a corridor toward a reinforced steel door deeper beneath the forest. The door unlocked with a soft mechanical sound. Inside, she stopped again. The archive room looked more like a private research vault than part of a workshop. Climate-controlled cabinets lined every wall. Scale models sat beneath glass displays. Blueprints stretched across drafting tables. At the center of the room stood an enormous topographical map showing mountain routes, remote infrastructure corridors, and transportation systems layered across terrain models. Lena walked slowly toward it. Her father hadn't just designed vehicles. He designed integrated systems, emergency transport, remote access networks, infrastructure movement through regions where ordinary solutions failed. She opened more files carefully. The contracts showed partnerships with companies and organizations around the world, mountain rescue groups, utility operations, disaster response organizations, transportation contractors. Many still use systems originally developed beneath this forest. Lena stared quietly. Her father built something important, something useful, and somehow, nobody in the family knew. No, she corrected herself immediately. Nobody looked long enough to understand. That realization stayed with her over the following months. Because rebuilding her life afterward wasn't dramatic. It wasn't some overnight transformation. It was paperwork, learning, responsibility. Attorneys verified ownership structures. Patent specialists reviewed licensing agreements. Transport companies requested meetings almost immediately after ownership transferred officially. At first, nobody took Lena seriously. A 19-year-old inheriting a hidden engineering company beneath a forest carriage house sounded ridiculous. Then they saw the documentation. Everything checked out. Every patent remained active. Every agreement remained legitimate. Several licensing contracts were even overdue for renegotiation. Then came the offers. Huge offers. Entire companies wanted ownership. Investment groups wanted controlling stakes. Manufacturers wanted permanent acquisition rights. Enough money to solve every immediate problem in her life. Enough money to make fear disappear. A year earlier, she might have accepted immediately. Most people would. But her father anticipated that too. Inside the archive room, she found another handwritten note attached beside the main drafting board. Never trade ownership for relief unless survival leaves you no choice. So Lena didn't sell. Instead, she learned engineering principles, licensing systems, business structures. The hidden operation still maintained connections with several trusted people her father worked beside for years. A retired engineer named Arthur helped explain the transport systems. A prototype technician taught her how the testing facilities operated. An accountant walked her through the licensing structures. Slowly, the underground operation came alive again. Quietly, exactly as intended. The carriage house above changed too. Roof repairs, structural reinforcement, updated electrical systems. But Lena intentionally kept the appearance nearly identical. From outside the forest path, it still looked like an old forgotten carriage house. That invisibility protected what existed beneath it. Inside, though, everything expanded carefully. Prototype development resumed. Engineering projects returned. Long-standing partnerships renewed. Word spread quietly through specialized industries that Whitaker Systems had become active again. One autumn evening nearly a year after inheriting the carriage house, Lena stood outside on the stone bridge crossing the creek. Warm lights glowed from the windows behind her, while hidden machinery hummed beneath the forest floor. Mist drifted softly through the trees. Her phone buzzed with another acquisition offer. She silenced it immediately, then looked back toward the carriage house. Her brothers laughed because they only saw what sat on the surface. Old stone, wood beams, moss, an outdated building in the woods. Most people stop looking once appearances confirm what they already believe. And that became the lesson Lena carried forward more than anything else. Real value hides surprisingly well beneath things the world dismisses too quickly. Old buildings, quiet systems, patient work, long-term ownership. The hidden facility beneath the carriage house didn't save her because it made her rich. It saved her because it gave her control over something stable. Something useful. Something capable of building a future instead of borrowing one. Her father hadn't left her a worthless carriage house. He left her an entire system hidden beneath everyone else's assumptions. And for the first time since the funeral, Lena no longer felt forgotten.